Good evening, and here we are with our last class of our 6 weeks journey together. And tonight we're discussing medicines. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, who for me are the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I would also like to acknowledge my teacher, Dr. Nita Chinatsang, and offer always my thanks and gratitude to him for these precious teachings and for his constant wisdom and kindness. The two fundamental aims of Tibetan medicine are prevention and cure. So not only to cure the disease, but to potentially prevent it occurring in your life by achieving a state of healthy balance that these things necessarily don't become a reality. And here we are again with our beautiful tree of treatment and the 4 categories of diet, lifestyle, external therapies, and medicines. And it's good to remember that they hold equal weight in the Tibetan medicine system. Medicines are not necessarily elevated above the other treatments, and working together, they support the body very beautifully and enable a really complete healing. Today we're looking at medicine, and for us that crossover of medicine and diet, which is really where the prevention and the cure is most profoundly efficacious. That's really when we can bring in 2 very important aspects of any healing modality. But in this system they cross over very beautifully and provide this very important fundamental desire to either prevent disease, or to cure disease. So Tibetan medicines are allopathic in nature, like Western medicines. And it's important to remember that even although, depending on where you travel, sometimes Tibetan medicines are very available and people like to buy them, or people give you Tibetan medicine, or a Lama gives you some medicines. But it's important to remember that they are as powerful and should be treated as respectfully as Western medicines, that you really should only access them from a qualified doctor or physician or someone who knows what they're giving you and why. And you should always ask, if someone recommends Tibetan medicine, what medicines they're giving you, why they're suggesting those medicines, and also get them to write down the name of the medicine, because later on you may need to provide that information to somebody else, and you can't just take a bag of medicine and say, what are these? And this happens to me all the time. Someone comes in with a bag of round brown pills and says, what are they? And I have to break it to them that most Tibetan medicine comes in a round brown pill. So remember that even though they're made from natural ingredients, they still have powerful, potent, active ingredients in them. The difference between that and chemical medicines from the West. So treat them with respect. Don't just think you can self-diagnose and then self-prescribe, even though you can buy these things on the internet. And while many lamas do learn some Tibetan medicine, if a teacher wants to offer you some medicines, and you want to be respectful and take them, again, it's no harm in asking what you're being given and why. But you can also, if you don't want to take them, don't. Just take them home, or wear a couple on your person as a blessing. I do see this quite often too. Someone says, well, but the Lama gave it to me, and I asked, did he say why he gave it to you? And they said, no, he just gave it to me. So as with anything, don't put something into your body if you're not sure what it is. But it's fair to say that the resemblance stops there with Western medicine. In formulation, Tibetan medicines are mostly plant-based, with other ingredients from animal and insect sources, rare earths, precious minerals, and gemstones. The Soil Rigpa Materia Medica contains more than 3,500 plants and substances, and that's probably not all of them that have been collated and listed and understood just yet. So here we see some gemstones and pearls being prepared to go into a medicine. And as many people know, the precious pills, the famous precious pills of Tibetan medicine, often contain these ingredients, but other formulas as well. So here in this picture, we can see lapis lazuli, we can see garnet, we can see pearls and coral, what looks to be amber. So these have either been boiled or are about to be boiled, or potentially calcinated, so burnt, before they go into a formula. And this is where the magic happens, the alchemy, at the large Tibetan medicine hospital in Xining in Amdo. So down here you see the smelter where the precious minerals are calcinated to go into the medicines, gold, silver, copper. And here we see the mercury processing machines. Really fascinating. As we all know, mercury is a very toxic substance, but in Tibetan medicine, a very, very powerful anti-cancer ingredient. So these machines process the mercury for about 40 days. Alongside that, there are prayers and mantras said as part of the process. And sometimes they have checked the blood of the senior doctors overseeing this. And halfway through, their body contains quite a lot of mercury. But by the end of the whole purification process, the prayers and mantras have reduced the toxic potency of the mercury in their body, and they're fine. We were very lucky to be able to visit this area. They don't often let guests in because they don't want negative energies in there while they're producing these incredible medicines. And here is an example of said round brown pills. So this is Agar 35, one of the most famous formulas in Tibetan medicine for lung imbalances. And we've been talking for these 6 weeks now about lung, anxiety, depression, lack of energy, poor sleep, headache. This medicine often given when other medicines don't work. So the 35 refers to the number of ingredients in the blend. The main ingredient in this one is eaglewood or agarwood, which is currently a species under threat in China through overharvesting. It's also used in incense. But yes, so Agar 35, you automatically know that there are 35 ingredients in this formula. And here is a nice picture of some monks making medicines at the Chakpuri Medical College in Lhasa, which of course is no longer there, having been destroyed in the Chinese invasion of Tibet. So these pills for hundreds of years, thousands of years have been rolled into balls by hand and then put out in the sun to dry. The process, particularly in the rural areas, is not vastly different today, except they might use a pill machine, which looks a little bit like one of our old cement mixers. And the material goes in and revolves and makes the small pills, but they're still dried in the sun. You might remember perhaps from the first week, we had some pictures of medicine pills being dried in the sun. So many Tibetan medicines, such as the well-known precious pills, are complex formulas with up to 75 ingredients. And these are not things that you would take without some advice or prescription from someone who knows what they're talking about. But it's also good to know that there are simple formulas, and some of these are very accessible to us and very beneficial to our ongoing self-care and health, particularly when we're working with things like stress and anxiety in our day-to-day lives. And we're going to talk about one of those formulas tonight. Here we are with the 6 good substances as it's known. So a very famous formula, a very effective formula. I've used this with great success myself in my own practice as a powder, as a tincture, and as an infused massage oil. Each one of these substances is the best possible item or ingredient to use for a particular organ. So clove, very valuable for the aorta or the vital life force channel. Saffron is the best substance for the liver. Nutmeg for the heart, the physiological heart and the emotional heart. Black cardamom is for the spleen. Green cardamom for the kidneys, and bamboo pith is the best substance for the lungs. And in this particular format, bamboo pith is a perfect example of the famous herbalist doctrine of signatures, where we say that a plant will often show us what body part it's most beneficial for. In this case, the bamboo pith for lungs look like perfect little cross sections of bronchial tubes. So you can buy these very easily, except with the bamboo pith. Sometimes you'll be able to source this from a Chinese herbalist. Otherwise, you can sometimes find it at the Chinese grocery store, either in a packet on its own, or sometimes if you have a look, you see these health soup blends in the Asian groceries. They have a lot of medicinal herbs in them, and you'll sometimes see it in there. So how do you use these? Powder is the best way, and you can buy most of these in powdered form already. Good idea, particularly with the black cardamom. That outer shell is very hard. Saffron, of course, is very expensive. The ideal quantities is equal quantities of everything and pretty much as much saffron as you can afford. But it is a very potent ingredient. You don't need a lot. So what you do, you got your powders, you mix them together, you have your little jar of 6 good substances. You can add it to your porridge, you can pop it in your smoothie, in your soups, in your curries. It's very easy to incorporate these into your daily diet. You can, if you have some of those little make it yourself tea bags, make a tea. But I have tried that and didn't find it particularly palatable, I have to say. So yeah, you could make a decoction or a syrup, but I think the powdered is the best way to go. And with those flavors, sprinkle it on your yogurt, put it in your chai, however it works for you. So moving forward from our understanding now of the 6 good substances, each being aligned with a major organ, we're taking that information now and looking at it in a slightly different way in the context of the calms, as they're known in Tibetan medicine. So these are the seasonal external influences that we are subject to over the course of a year. And in this instance, we're talking about a relationship of 2 organs, the hollow and the solid organ, and the external sense organ that is related to this. So we have this hierarchy within these systems. So for example, we'll start here with the liver as the solid organ, the main organ of the relationship, as it were. And the hollow organ or the vessel organ here is the gallbladder. But the external sense organ, which is connected to the liver, which can sometimes give us information about the liver, are the eyes. So we can see them as ambassadors to the internal organs that we can't necessarily see, but we may notice that someone's eyes are giving them a problem and then consider that this may be a manifestation of a liver issue. And spring in the calms is the season where the liver is most vulnerable. And if you think about spring, eyes are often unhappy with hay fever and all the things that are going on there. So at a time where the liver is vulnerable, saffron is something that you can add to your diet to support and assist the liver and the gallbladder and the eyes in this period. And then in summer, the heart is vulnerable, the solid organ of the heart. Go back to our page, the solid organ of the heart and the hollow organ of the small intestine. And these are related externally to the sense organ of the tongue. And nutmeg is the herb that we would use in summer to support the heart. In autumn, the lungs are vulnerable, and the large intestines in partnership with the lungs as the hollow organ, and the external sense organ for the lungs is the nose. And the bamboo pith would support and warm the lungs in the autumn period. And in the winter, as we often all know, our kidneys are vulnerable in the cold, and the urinary bladder is associated there as the partner hollow organ to the solid organ of the kidneys, and the ears are the external sense organ related to that. And it's interesting once you know this, because often people with tinnitus, it's actually a kidney issue rather than an ear issue. But green cardamom is the superior substance to help with the kidneys. It's really wonderful. And then we have what's known as transition. And at the end of each of these seasons, there's an 18-day period where the energy is returning to the earth. And that time over the course of a year, 4 times 18 actually equates to a 5th season. And in this transition period, the spleen is vulnerable, and the stomach as the hollow organ in partnership there, and the lips are the external sense organ, which can often show us that there are issues with the spleen and stomach. And black cardamom is the superior herb to treat. So you can have your 6 good substances blend, or you can take an individual herb and support your body during the appropriate season if you're feeling that that is a vulnerable part of what's going on with you at that time. It's a very elegant representation of what's going on in the body and the interconnectedness of all our systems, because we never just treat one part of the body on its own. That's one of the things I love about Tibetan medicine. It's truly holistic in its approach to the body and to the person. So one of the things that's really important when we're talking about anxiety and stress and the wind imbalances is protecting the digestion. And it's really important to maintain your metabolic heat, your digestive fire. In Tibetan medicine, we believe that all chronic disease comes from medrod or poor digestion. And so keep that cauldron boiling, keep those fires burning, because if your food is processed properly, your body has a better chance of taking the nutrients out of it, and it's processing all the waste materials correctly. So digestion is really important. And we know now that there is a strong connection between mental health and gut health. So maintaining the gut health is really important. So we regard pomegranate as the most superior herb or plant to treat indigestion. It's a very warming substance. Ginger is everybody's friend. It's warming, it's anti-inflammatory, it's very easy to include in the diet. And salt is another thing, which is also warming and drying. Salt is a good thing to use if you suffer a little bit from bloating after meals. If you drink a hot cup of water with a good pinch of salt, 10 minutes before you eat, it will break up any phlegm that is residing on top of the digestive fluids, and it will warm the digestion, call it to action before the food comes in. But many, many other things are also warming that you can add to the diet, and you probably have most of these in your kitchen already. And we tend to think of chili as the warming food, but it's not the only one, and a lot of people can't take chili. So while chili is there, you don't have to rely on chili. All of these have very positive and strong warm to hot effects on the digestion. So star anise, beautiful herb, cinnamon, garlic, black pepper, coriander. Now with coriander, for this case, we're speaking of the dried seed coriander, which is hot in nature, not the green-leafed herb, which is cooling in nature. Sichuan pepper, onyeme, turmeric, this is cumin, coriander, long pepper, beautiful fragrant pepper, mustard, and asafoetida or hing, or as it's known in common usage, devil's dung, because it stinks to high heaven. Very, very highly used in Indian cooking as a digestion, particularly with the large use of pulses. And you only need a small bit. It's considered a very, 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 very potent herb for treating lung and for the digestion, but it does stink. So I keep it in its little box that it comes in a Ziploc bag in a jar. But if you can tolerate it, it's an excellent addition. All of these things can be added to foods that you're cooking every day. It's not hard to include some ginger in your diet. Ginger tea, throw some ginger into a salad dressing, put some ginger into whatever you're cooking in the wok or stir frying or steaming. And altogether, these make, a wonderful array of choices that you can incorporate every day into your diet to keep that metabolic heat going, to warm the body, to help pacify the lung. So now we're slowly moving from thinking of just herbs and spices as medicine to looking at the food. And again, this crossover is a very potent part of how we can look at what goes into our body and what actually constitutes medicine. And as Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. And for years, food was our medicine. Things have changed now in the modern world, and food is sometimes our poison or our enemy. But if we can concentrate more on what we're putting into our body with more awareness, then we can perhaps bring it back to being the important medicinal ingredient, as well as an option for pleasure and family and sharing and community. So remembering our 5 elements, one way to balance those in the body is through the food and drink that we intake. Everything we consume grows as a result of the existence and function of the 5 elements. For example, the earth element provides the base for a seed to grow. Water provides the moisture. Fire generates needed warmth. Air facilitates growth, and space provides the room to grow. And I think this is a really important viewpoint. This is from the Explanatory Tantra from the Jushi, chapter 19. There is no substance on this earth which is devoid of any medicinal value. It's just having that awareness and that understanding and that openness to see that whatever the earth provides for us is probably beneficial in some form. Fats are a very, very important dietary addition, particularly when we are trying to pacify that lung energy, which, as we keep speaking about, look for good quality fats. Good examples of this are, of course, avocado, good quality olive oil. Peanut oil is excellent for those of you who like to cook in oil a little bit because it can tolerate a high heat so that oil doesn't break down and become toxic. butter. Unless you have a genuine and high cholesterol issue, eat butter. It's natural. Our bodies know what to do with butter. We've been eating it for millennia. Nuts and seeds, a very important addition to the diet, very high quality, very nutritionally dense. So you only need a little bit, but it's really good to include a little bit in your diet every day. And the best friend of lung is, of course, sesame. And we talked a couple of weeks ago about the benefits of sesame oil on the body. But now we're talking about sesame oil in the body, and it's an easy and delicious thing to do. The seeds, of course, toasted, are delicious on all sorts of things. You could practically eat them at every meal of the day, sprinkle them on your porridge, sprinkle them on your salad at lunch, throw them into your stir-fried veggies for dinner. You don't need me to tell you how to cook. Sesame oil, and if you'll recall, we spoke last time about using the unrefined, unroasted sesame oil, not this delicious smelling one in the small bottle that you put into your wok. It's wonderful for adding flavour at the end. But for the benefits of sesame oil, you want the unroasted, unrefined one. And sesame paste or tahini, a really easy way to add sesame into your day. Again, you can pop it into all sorts of things, use in place of peanut butter. It's very easy and delicious. So when we talk about food and medicines in Tibetan medicine, we often describe something by what we call its taste. And the tastes that benefit lung, strengthening us and pacifying our energy, are sweet, salty, and hot. So those are the flavors in foods that as you come across them, you'll know that there's some benefit. And here's an example of just a few foods that you can include in your diet that are of great benefit to pacifying lung. We talk about this a lot, you know. We want to tame those little wind horses. We want them unblocked. We want them moving in the right directions. We don't want them in excess. We don't want them in deficiency. We want everything running as it should be. Peanuts are a great food, high in nutrition, very good quality fats, great to include peanuts. Taro or yams are very good. This is barley. Barley is great. Wheat can be a little bit cooling. So as a rule, we tend to avoid wheat when we're wanting to maintain that metabolic heat. Leeks, spring onions, turnips, pumpkin, radishes, the long ones and the short ones. Oats are good. Onion, eggs are a very warming food. Green beans, and seaweed is good. It's also salty, so you're getting that dry warmth from the salt as well. So these are all things that are very easy to find, very easy to incorporate. You're probably eating most of them already anyway. And I think what's important is develop the mindset that everything you put into your body is medicine. If you think about that, it is. And then if we can think about that, then we are really honouring ourselves and we're honouring what we put in. So gradually you'll start to see your food a little differently and perhaps be a little bit more discerning about what you eat, about the quality of what you eat. I mean, we all have to do what we have to do and what we can afford and what we can manage according to our circumstances. But if we can start to see the value in what we're putting into our body and understand that we're rebalancing those vital 5 elements every time that we take food in, it's not just fuel, it becomes something very precious. So this is the sad part of the talk, the no foods, especially for dealing with lung imbalances. No raw food. It's very hard to digest. We don't want to put pressure on the digestive system. As I said before, that digestive health, mind health, gut health thing is very real. If you really like to eat things like raw carrots and stuff, I recommend you slice them and salt them for a few minutes, then rinse them off. This is a very fast, basic method of pickling, but it starts to break up cellulose in the food. So the digestion doesn't have to work so hard to get to the actual nutrients. Cold foods, again, you know, we're wanting to maintain that metabolic heat, not dissipate it. And it's the same with cold drinks. You might as well pour cold water onto a fire. Cooling foods. Not all food has to be cold to have a cooling effect on the body. Cucumber is a very good example of this. And rough foods, again, stressing out the digestive system, particularly for lung. Rough foods are things like muesli. They might be dry and, you know, a little bit indigestible, a little bit hard to process. And stimulants. So where you can, and with great kindness to yourself, reconsider your daily coffee, strong teas, matcha, caffeinated drinks, chocolate, all of these things are stimulants, and we're wanting to calm and pacify, not aggravate and overstimulate. Sorry. Do what you can, don't beat yourself up. And then there's the whole area of Chulin or rejuvenation medicines, which we'll do a separate thing on because they're really very interesting. But these are substances put together that help activate that rejuvenation energy inside us. Not just about rejuvenating facially, but rejuvenating our organs, our energy. Remember our Vajra body? We talked about that, building that connection again between our actual body and our energy body. But I have here for you a very simple Chulin recipe, very easy to do at home. So equal parts of honey, butter, and sampa. So you make small balls, mix it all together. Take about a tablespoon for each ball, and you would take one of these in the morning with some hot water. You can make a week's worth at a time and keep it in the fridge. Now, this is a simple Chulin. You could also add your 6 good substances to this blend. You take your little jar of 6 good substances and maybe put a couple of tablespoons in with the butter, honey, and sampa. Now, sampa is roasted barley flour. The barley is roasted and then ground. And it's very easy to find recipes to make this yourself on the internet. The barley gets popped in a dry pan. It looks like small popcorn. And then when it's cooled, you put it into some sort of grinder or atomizer. If you have a community of Tibetans in your area, somebody is undoubtedly making sampa, so reach out and see. So just as we finish up talking about herbs and medicinal substances, I want to share with you a video from actually my last trip to Tibet.
Okay, so we're in another herb shop, and this one is seriously cool. We've got safflower, beautiful safflower, sandalwood. If only you could smell this, it's divine, just divine. It's the best sandalwood. Cinnamon, beautiful quills of cinnamon. We have very good quality stuff in here. It's all very exciting. Of course, most of it I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but we'll work it out as we go. Just beautiful. Some sort of white bean. Everybody's having great time. Calcite, such an important ingredient in Tibetan medicine. This is very nice calcite. This is Himalayan salt. Some sort of resin here. I have to ask somebody to see what this one is. And this one we have crab shells. Crab shells are used a lot. And here, all the precious stones, all the rare earths and precious stones, agates, chalcedony. I think this one is a kind of chrysoprase. I have to check. Rose petals are everywhere. Tonka beans, garnet. Lots of beautiful garnet. Lapis lazuli up the back there. Pearls for the muktik medicines. We've got cowrie shells for massaging and crushing for medicines. Everything in here looks very good quality and is very aromatic, so I'm assuming it's very fresh. There's been a little bit of shopping going on with the group, but not much. Lovely black cardamom cuttlefish. I think this looks to me like black cardamom that's been taken out of the pods. Black pepper. Beautiful. Yeah, this one's been most fun so far. And I wish I could bring some of these things home to Australia to play with, but sadly, no. Paljo, I'll give everyone a wave. Hi.
Paljo, our beautiful translator. So, just fascinating to see all those things. And again, I think it just really reminds us that everything that goes into our body is medicine, even things that we never thought we might like to put in our mouth. So if you are interested in pursuing a little bit more about making your own medicines, I can't recommend this book highly enough, by Lucy Jones, who is an awesome woman and a friend of mine, but an exceptional Western herbalist and also a Tibetan medicine practitioner. And she actually studied with Dr. Nita's teacher, Professor Turusunam. And this is a fabulous book based on her many, many years of experience. And she's passionate about growing and gathering wildcrafting herbs, and gives excellent advice here on how to process them for medicinal use for yourself. So you can buy this on Amazon or any of the big book sites now, and I really recommend it. So as we come to the end of our 6-week journey, I think really the important things to take away from this is the greatest healing tools really are to have compassion for yourself. You know, you're doing your best. We're all doing our best, particularly at the moment. These are unprecedented times. And whatever you're doing, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't have higher standards for yourself than everybody else. Show kindness for others wherever you can. Even small acts of kindness can make a huge difference for somebody else. Be aware, look around, see who needs help. And gratitude. I think gratitude is the most important medicine that any of us can engage in, because no matter how difficult our situation is, there's always something that we can be grateful for. And that puts things into perspective on a daily basis. So be grateful. You might be grateful for community, or that your family are all well, or that you have access to clean water, or that your children have access to education. It's different for everybody. At the moment, there's places in the world where people are just grateful for shelter. And, you know, that's something that we need to be aware of as well. But look around your life every day and find something to be grateful for. It's really not difficult. So I hope you've enjoyed these weekly classes. I've loved bringing them to you and hope you find them of benefit. And I would just like to make this small dedication now. By the merit, may we quickly achieve the state of Utok, the King of Medicine, and through this may all beings be placed on this level.